President Donald Trump has issued a stark warning against Tehran today as the two sides continue to exchange strikes. That's as peace negotiations broke down over the weekend. In an interview with Fox News, Trump said he was prepared to hit Iranian civilian infrastructure if the regime doesn't reopen talks.
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. But we're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
Well, it's not the first time Trump has issued such a threat. Back in April, he made similar comments, leading to the UN Human Rights Chief, Volker Turk, to warn that under international law, deliberately attacking civilians and civilian infrastructure is a war crime. Well, joining me now is retired US Navy Rear Admiral and Senior Fellow for the Defence of Democracies, Mark Montgomery. Mark, good evening to you. Thank you for being with us. Mark, good evening to you. We're just trying to establish a clear... there we are, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. Look, the US military today had to deny that its forces had struck a civilian wheat storage facility in Iran on Tuesday. Yesterday, it said that Iranian military targets were struck to degrade Tehran's ability to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So there are already question marks over the actions of the US here and whether they are doing the right thing and provoking Iran in this way. How do you think this form of negotiation is working so far?
Well, look, I think the president left himself no choice. The memorandum of understanding was unacceptable. I mean, what he agreed to was eventually was going to be utilized by Iran to shut the Strait of Hormuz, and they did. And and the more successful that the U.S. and its Arab allies were in bringing ships through the southern route, the Oman route, the more certain it was that Iran had to strike that, and they did. So I think we're at the point now where he has to go attempt to make conditions safe for Western, Arab allies, European, Asian shipping to get through the southern strait. And to do that, you're going to see an increasing amount of strikes against the area between Bandar Abbas and Bushehr, north of the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran today threatening to halt all energy exports from the Middle East. The US reimposed its blockade, didn't it, of Iranian ports and ships last night, 9 o'clock our time. There is a danger here that it just escalates. And when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, the argument is Iran actually has more control. There is more that Iran can do to shut down that strait than America can do to harm it, to encourage it otherwise.
Well, I agree with that, although obviously the United States can stop Iranian ships from getting to China and India and delivering their fossil fuel. We did that for 50 days previously, and they're going to start doing it again now. And if we're smart, we'll run down a few of the ships that got through over the last week or so and turn them back or disable them. So we can do a lot to impose cost on Iran's economy. The difference is Iran's an authoritarian regime that can tell its people to tough it and not really care about whether there's an economic maelstrom, whereas the United States and its partners are generally democracies who have to respond to rising gas prices and rising food prices.
Where does this go from here, Mark, do you think, in your opinion?
Now, unfortunately, I do think Trump will probably escalate it into non-maritime targets, and he'll hit hopefully bridges that have a military. You can hit bridges. Many bridges have a military value to them, and you hit them. Many power plants have a military value, but not all of them do, and not all of the bridges do. So hopefully the targeteers will have the right discretion to hit the military relevant bridges and utility systems if they expanded it. Again, I hope they don't, but I recognize it's highly likely with Trump's kind of temperament and a lack of response by the Iranians to the blockade, at least initial response. I think that's where we'll end up.
You say that actually bridges are okay to hit if they have a military element to them. But when he spoke on TV last night, a special report with Brett Baer, last night on American TV. He did say ultimately we'll hit energy targets. So he talked about Iran's bridges, but also said power plants next week if the country did not return to talks. It would presumably not be okay for him to attack power plants, for him to order the US military to do that.
No, he can attack, again, it's a case-by-case basis. And the U.S. military has attacked lots of power plants legally over the last 25 years, as have our European partners in places like Serbia, Bosnia, in previous wars, if they have a military application. Many don't. And the president certainly uses, he doesn't make that distinction, which is inappropriate. He should. Part of the reason we're in this war is one of the countries, one of the belligerents, Iran, killed 30,000 people in 36 hours. And we said that was a war crime. That was inappropriate. We should not respond to that kind of inappropriate behavior by Iran by striking targets that aren't militarily relevant. So hopefully the military targeteers have more patience and discretion than the president does.
If Iran block trading routes in the region, if they halt all energy exports from the Middle East, just to kind of reiterate this further, would that bring Donald Trump back to the table? Would he have to make concessions? I suppose it's sort of, who sort of buckles first in this, and it's kind of a horrible thing to think about. But, ultimately, with Iran halting all energy exports from the Middle East, it would affect the international market, it would affect the US. Would that have to cause Donald Trump to think again?
Well, selfishly, he doesn't have an oil problem, right? He doesn't have or an LNG problem, but his trading partners do.
Yeah.
So at some
and he also
point,
has an oil price problem for the American market.
Domestic.
Yeah, domestic use.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and so will it bring him back? I'm not sure. The president's temperamental. He changes policies. As you saw, he declared a 20% excise tax or fee on transport, and then very quickly backed right back off of it within 12 or 14 hours. So I can't say exactly, for certain what he'll do, but what I will say is that we're at the point now where I think the rest of the Western world needs to understand there's a country here trying to alter how international maritime law is executed. That's Iran, and a country, the United States, that's trying to preserve it. And the Europeans have to get over their righteous pissed offness at Trump over how they were.
Excuse your language, Mark, but
Yeah.
I get it. I think it is rock and a hard place, isn't it? I think many people feel that Donald Trump did not need to start this war right now. But regardless of that opinion, I suppose he's in it. He's in the middle of it. There is an MOU on the table which has now all but been scrapped, and so I suppose it's just gearing up for another full-scale assault. And Axios saying yesterday, first thing today, that Trump had held a situation meeting room yesterday to discuss a massive offensive against Iran beyond the current strike. So really, really going big. We'll watch with interest, of course. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Mark Montgomery, retired US Navy Rear Admiral and Senior Fellow for the Defence of Democracies.